right, are you ready? Let's get into this. Today we're exploring how social media platforms like TikTok and Instagram have become major sources of news, using the 2024 US presidential election as a case study. Social media has changed how we consume news. It's fast and accessible, but with that convenience comes challenges like the spread of misinformation. Influencers, viral posts, and even AI-generated content played a huge role in shaping public opinion during this election. Throughout this series, I'll discuss examples of misinformation, how it impacts us, and what people think about social media as a news source. I'll also share some insights from interviews I conducted where many people admitted they get most of their news from social media. In the 2024 election, social media wasn't just for sharing memes, it was a primary news source for millions. Platforms like TikTok and Instagram were flooded with political content, from candidate updates to viral disinformation. I interviewed several people about where they get their news, and most of them said social media is their go-to source. It's convenient, always updated, and feels relatable since the news often comes from influencers or peers. However, many admitted they don't always verify the information they see. This reliance on social media means that misinformation, like the claims of Kamala Harris hugging Jeffrey Epstein or migrants voting illegally, spreads quickly and influences perceptions. Let's dive into how misinformation shaped the 2024 election. A viral video falsely showed a man claiming he voted twice in Georgia, while debunked as Russian-made, it fueled concerns about election integrity. Another example was the claim that millions of migrants overran the southern border under Harris. Despite fact-checkers disproving this, the story gained traction, damaging her image on immigration. When I asked people if they trusted news from social media, opinions varied. Some said yes, but only if it came from influencers they trust. Others admitted they're skeptical because of how quickly fake news spreads. These examples show why we must be cautious about what we believe and share online. I found their interviews fascinating. Most people said they get their news from social media because it's convenient and tailored to their interests. They also mentioned trusting influencers more than traditional news outlets, especially those who appear relatable or share their values. However, some acknowledged the risks. A few interviewees admitted they've shared something they later found out was fake. They pointed to the fast-paced nature of social media. It's easy to scroll, believe, and share without verifying. This highlights a key issue. While social media is accessible, it's also a hotspot for misinformation. The responsibility lies with both platforms and users to ensure accuracy. Social media has revolutionized how we consume news, but it's also made us more vulnerable to misinformation. The 2024 election showed us both the power and the pitfalls of platforms like TikTok and Instagram. The interviews I conducted revealed that while many rely on social media for news, they're also aware of its risks. It's up to us to stay informed, verify information, and hold platforms accountable. Thanks for joining me in this discussion. Let's continue working toward a more informed and truthful digital space. All right, Fernando, to you.
Bet, bro. No cap. I got risk. You bustin', bro.
This last year, with all of its nuances and niches, as well as the big events of the 2024 presidential election, had a variety of different little niches. The coalition of trending discourse amongst the likes of Generation Z and Generation Alpha has taken dialogue and knowledge of slang to an entirely different level, in which this level is social media digital influencing. Digital influencing has overall taken course in order to create a spectrum of seeing all sorts of things called like brain rot, which approximate the sayings and even memories shared amongst the talks and discourses of young people. Most of these discourses are shared amongst the popular social media apps like Twitter, TikTok, and even Instagram. A lot of variations are present within the discourse of this memery and brain rot discourse. The most recent one and popular one right now being of the Twitter user that created this animal character as a capybara or like a possible dog with a jacket and hands inside of their pockets symbolizing a chill guy, which can be used to describe as a persona or a mental state of just caring about the situations of distress at hand. The most prominent one that has occurred now for a saying basis is having to do with the longing release of the video game known as Grand Theft Auto 6. Almost 10 years after the previous installment, Grand Theft Auto 5, was released, most people humorously joke about the strange, crazy, or bizarre events that take place in real life before the game releases in 2025.
Today I watched a guy at the mall, at the outlet mall, clipping his toenails outside the Adidas store.
In real life.
In real life.
I saw someone touch a roadkill.
Jake Paul killed Mike Tyson.
Life.
We raided Area 51.
Wait a minute, what the heck does this all have to do with the election, though?
While some of the divides within the nation of the United States did carry prominence, brain rot and meme culture, as mentioned, played their role within the political landscape and interactions. Some of those brain rot and social media interactions carried notably amongst some of the interesting but yet humorous events that took place within the presidential cycle. One is such with Donald Trump working at McDonald's, in which received a lot of hilarious responses from the people who engage in meme culture, such as, "Oh, he put the fries in the bag."
Just put the fries in the bag, bro.
He also did a garbage truck stunt as well, as if he were working in a garbage truck. Kamala Harris had her own interactions with the culture of digitalization with her Fortnite advertisements and playable maps for gamers to interact with. There's even a incredibly ridiculous meme going around of outrageous artificially intelligent produced images had of both candidates having relations with one another to create outrage amongst the comment sections. Overall, that was just some of the very, very minuscule amount of memes and brain rot content that existed within the time frame of the 2024 election. All right, I'm going to send this one to my old geezer.
Oh, well, thank you, Fernando. Hi there, welcome. Darcy the Geezer here. In today's story, we will be highlighting internet use as a news outlet between the generations and what those youngins have to say about it. As it stands now, according to the American Press Institute, 79% of Gen Z and millennials are getting news on the daily. But are they relying on traditional news sources to get their information? Oh, be all Betty, the research says no. Well, I say between 35 and 44% of Gen Z and millennials have never gotten their news from a traditional source. They rely on a range of social media platforms. But what about us geezers? According to the Pew Research Institute, 46% of Gen X, raise the roof, get their news from a traditional outlet, and 51% from our good old social media friend, Facebook. And going back even further for the boomers, local TV tops the list of sources for political news at 60%. 60%! With this being the case, I went online to the kids' social media platforms, you know, the TikTok and the Instagram, to see how they think us geezers would benefit politically from getting our news from one of their sources versus our trusted broadcast news. Let's read what some of them had to say. I can't see so well these days, so I wanted to make sure I had them close. So when I asked how we would benefit politically, I actually got some mixed reviews from these youngins. Let's take a look. Because you get more diverse opinions from independent people who aren't biased because they aren't getting paid. As far as getting news from Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, or Instagram, I would heavily push against that because the algorithm can be super biased. Also, a lot of false information cycles around in TikTok particularly. I think it's best to get news from multiple news sources rather than one itself, so your knowledge on a certain matter is more well-rounded. I would personally recommend YouTube to do this. I think the benefit would be a wider access to more accredited news sources rather than what just pops up on your Explorer. I guess just being able to know both sides of a story rather than having your Explorer page algorithm mess it up. Let's keep going, shall we? I don't think it's all about the news, but different interpretation of the events. I think everyone should have to follow a minimum of 2 accounts from both political parties. Even if you don't agree with them, it's interesting to see other humans' perceptions. Get out of the bumble. Another one here. You don't, because anyone can post anything on those outlets. Peer-reviewed journals are the only reliable sources these days. And the last couple here. I feel like older people would benefit in a way with the same outlets as long as they're open to it. Because I know. because I know some older people are kind of stuck living in the old ways and rely more towards traditional broadcast news just because that's what they grew up with, rather than focusing on the evolving world and technology now and how we can rely a lot on these news outlets, especially with AI now becoming increasingly popular. Now, going back, I feel like the older generations would benefit greatly with these news outlets as long as they are open to new things. Now, for our final response here, I feel that the older generation could benefit from utilizing TikTok and Instagram as news outlets because it's not as filtered as traditional broadcast news. You get facts from the people and can read comments about what is happening in current events. Anytime I want to know something, I use TikTok as a Google of sorts. Well, there you have it there, folks. What the youngins really think about us geezers and our news sources. And as my beloved Walter Cronkite would say, and that's the way it is. And now over to you, Logan.
Everyone stop scrolling. I need your help. Where does Gen Z really get their news? Forget the evening news. Gen Z is turning to social media for their information. According to PR Daily, about half of TikTok's users under 30 are using it for politics and news. This means that influencers aren't just selling products, they're influencing and shaping opinions. They're breaking down complex news stories into bite-sized, easy-to-understand content. So what does this mean? Is this bad? Is this good? While social media offers a lot of benefits, it also offers a lot of challenges. As Gen Z continues to shape the future for news consumption, it is clear that traditional media needs a change and we need to adapt. This also means that it's at a risk for becoming really irrelevant. Now I have some questions for you. What are your thoughts on the future of news consumption on social media? And can we better balance the need for speed and accuracy in news reporting on social media? What do you guys think are some innovative ways for us to use social media to tell stories that traditional media just can't?